The town of Hallowbrook was always quiet, too quiet. Time seemed to stand still here, untouched by the chaos of the outside world. People came, stayed for a while, and then left, but no one ever truly remembered Hallowbrook. It was as if the town itself preferred to remain a forgotten secret. James Alden, a traveling musician, arrived on a rainy evening, just like he had in hundreds of towns before. He'd played in numerous bars, passed through many towns, and met more strangers than he could count. But this town felt different. There was an odd heaviness in the air, an unspoken tension that he couldn't quite place. The moment he stepped off the bus, a strange sensation crept into his mind, a melody. It started faintly, barely a whisper at first, but it grew louder with each step he took. It was a song he had never heard before, yet it felt strangely familiar, like a long-lost memory trying to resurface. The more he tried to ignore it, the louder it became, pulling him towards something he didn't yet understand. But no one else seemed to hear it. It was his alone, a tune that seemed to be searching for him. Hallowbrook was a town that didn't make much sense. The people were friendly, almost too friendly, but there was something off about them. They spoke slowly, carefully, as if choosing their words with great precision. Everything in the town seemed frozen in time. The streets were empty, the shops quiet. It was as though life had stopped moving here, and everyone was waiting for something. James checked into the local inn, an ancient building with the scent of dust and forgotten years in the air. The innkeeper's daughter, Lily, greeted him warmly, but said little. She handed him the key to his room with a knowing look in her eyes. "Looking for something?" she asked softly, her voice deliberate. James hesitated, unsure of what she meant. "Just passing through," he replied, offering a forced smile. Lily said nothing more, just nodded and walked away. But as James sat down to eat, the song returned, louder now. It throbbed in his mind like a heartbeat, relentless and insistent. He could almost make out the lyrics, but they were indistinct, like a dream slipping through his fingers. All he knew was that the song was calling him, beckoning him to follow it, wherever it led. Days passed, but the song never stopped. It followed James everywhere, through the cobbled streets, into the quiet corners of the town, and even as he tried to sleep. It was as if the very town itself was humming the melody. No matter what he did, he couldn't escape it. The song was always there, just at the edge of his thoughts. Curious and desperate for any distraction, James decided to visit the local library. Perhaps there, among the dusty shelves and forgotten volumes, he could find some clue that might explain the strange, relentless pull he felt. As he browsed through the books, his mind was clouded by the song, but he tried to focus on the silence of the library, hoping it would help him clear his thoughts. The librarian, an elderly man with a weary gaze, watched James quietly for a moment. After what felt like an eternity of silence, James muttered almost absent-mindedly, "This place, it's got this strange pull. There's a song in my head that I can't shake. It's like it's tied to the town itself." The librarian's expression shifted. He nodded slowly, as if he had heard similar words many times before. "You're not the first to hear it." James looked up, surprised. "What do you mean?" The librarian motioned toward a worn leather journal on a nearby shelf. "A man named Samuel passed through here years ago, searching for a song just like the one you're hearing now. Samuel had come to the town full of hope, convinced that the melody would bring him fame, or perhaps something more. But Samuel had vanished, leaving behind only an old journal and a lingering sense of unease. A shiver ran down James's spine as the librarian spoke. He couldn't shake the feeling that there was more to the story, but the song was growing louder, pulling him deeper into the mystery of the town. It was impossible to ignore. It was pulling him deeper into the town, into something he couldn't understand but was compelled to find. One evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, James felt the pull of the song grow even stronger, guiding him through the town. The streets grew quieter with each step, almost as if the town was closing in around him. It was as though everything in Hallowbrook had slowed to a standstill, holding its breath, waiting. Then, as though directed by an unseen force, his feet carried him toward the outskirts. Atop a hill, he saw it. An old chapel, forgotten and crumbling. He couldn't explain why, but something about this place drew him in. It wasn't just the song. The very air around him hummed with anticipation, vibrating with an energy he couldn't fully understand. Stepping inside, the melody surged, louder and clearer than before. The song had moved beyond his mind. Now it filled the space, reverberating through every crack and crevice, alive with its rhythm. The sound had darkened, grown more urgent, almost as if it were feeding off his presence. An overwhelming sense of inevitability washed over him. His body moved forward as though it were being guided, his feet carrying him toward the altar against his will. He tried to resist, but his body obeyed the call. And then, in a moment of eerie clarity, the full version of the song unfurled in his mind. The melody twisted, its notes distorting into something darker, more alive. It was no longer just a song, it was a force, a presence. The song wasn't just in his head, it was everywhere, floating in the air, swirling in the ground beneath him, woven into the very stones beneath his feet. His heart raced as he realized the truth. He wasn't merely hearing the song. The song was listening to him. It had been waiting for him all along. Before James could react, Lily appeared at the chapel door. She was holding a violin, but her expression was different now, colder, darker, almost predatory. "You found it," she said softly, her voice carrying an unfamiliar weight. "I don't understand," James said, his voice trembling. "What is this? What's happening?" Lily smiled, but it wasn't the gentle smile he had seen earlier. This one was knowing, almost predatory. "No, James. It was never about finding the song. The song has been waiting for you." Suddenly, the chapel filled with a blinding light. James screamed in terror as the song overtook him. The melody wrapped around his mind, consuming him. In that moment, he understood. He had always been part of the song, a hidden note, waiting to be heard. Lily raised the violin, and the moment her bow touched the strings, the air seemed to tremble. The song surged forward, more powerful now, like a tidal wave crashing over him. The melody pulled James toward the center of the chapel. As the music played, the truth became clear. It wasn't just a tune. It was a curse, passed down for generations, drawing in musicians who entered Hallowbrook, slowly consuming them until they became part of the song itself. And James, he was no different. The song had been searching for him, calling him in with its haunting pull. The walls of the chapel began to close in. The air thickened. His thoughts, his identity, his very soul began to fade, consumed by the music. As the final note played, James screamed, but his voice was lost in the melody. All that remained was the song. It would play on forever.